There are cars that remain in history. There are machines that become icons. And there is a BMW M3. She has been changing the rules of the game for almost 40 years. And today we will remember why this legend is still alive. Could you imagine the perfect, and maybe many will say the perfect BMW should be on the atmosphere and necessarily on the mechanics of athletes? Note that BMW is correct. She is light and obedient in driving, and lovers of daily driving will assure you that even a sports BMW should be comfortable and beautiful and give only positive emotions. And know what all these people want? The type of this model, born for racing, forced to go on the roads. But let's start at the very beginning, as it all started.
In a world that's lost its way, where the fake smiles rule the day, I'm tired of the games you play. No more silence, I'll disobey. Whispers in the crowd, I can hear them shout. Every judgment they throw, I'll drown it out. So raise your voice.
E30 is small, aggressive, with the heart of a champion. She destroyed opponents in the DTM, WTCC, and even in rallying. This is the most titled touring car in the history of BMW. You are now looking at the most titled sports model in the history of the company. Hundreds of victories and dozens of Champions Cups. Legendary M3 of the first generation, built into the walls of the race, the motorsport division was originally designed as a racing model and then adapts to the state of the usual route of the division itself. Time carried out mainly preparation of cars for races, and for their new creation to be allowed to participate in competitions, they had to produce at least 5,000 public road vehicles built on the basis of a completely ordinary tread from it. A fairly strong M3 was used to install discs on a wide, low-profile rubber arc, had to be significantly expanded. Aerodynamic suspension on this car was by no means for beauty. Developed taking into account the racing conditions, that it has optimized airflowing at a speed of up to 240 kilometers per hour. Except the toe, the car received a more rigid and low suspension for maximum lightness. Even the glass had a smaller engine thickness knife. At first glance, not mind-blowing, actually very durable. Legendary 4-cylinder unit child from 2 and 3 to 2 and 5 liters in the evolution of the sports version, developed from 195 to 238 horsepower. The car is easy to drive, up to 100 in 6 and 8 seconds of racing modification. This engine was able to deliver from 300 to 350 forces. Designers provided such rigidity of the piston which she could withstand the conditions in the race of 10,000 revolutions per minute and more. M3 was designed as a racing car, and the very first race in 1987 ended the scandal. All M3 were disqualified for the thickness of sheet metal, which was allegedly fortunately thinner than the knife required by the regulations. This did not affect the result of the championship. At the end of the season, Robert Reval, I became the first champion of the BMW M3. Further racing sensations literally shocked the competitors. Just followed them with a crazy number of victories in various body championships, such as the DTM WTCC. M3 won the prestigious 24-hour race in Nuremberg, and even one of the stages in the World Rally Championship. The rear-wheel drive M3 managed to overtake the then undefeated all-wheel drive Lancia Delta Integral. Let it be done only once, but it was shockingly the favorite from the World Rally. At that time, almost 18,000 M3 were produced. Almost 18,000 copies of the first-generation M3, including 18 convertibles and even one pickup truck. Yes, you have not heard the base cabriolet M3. For the needs of the factory, built pickup truck is used. For the transportation of spare parts, it is interesting that actually working at the BMW factory at this time, in my opinion, the guys from the BMW factory for the lunch break were simply chasing and getting a drive. But not everything is eternal, so the car retired after 26 years of operation at the factory, and real German quality, and that could boast of carpentry. The fastest change time M3 was the Hamann version, namely Hamann Laguna Seca 3 and 5 Turbo Generation E30. Above the suspension mounting frame, safety teams decided refuel under the hood. Probably the best engine of that time, M3, 5 liters using turbines, etc. Improvements were able to remove 410 horses. Power with such energy efficiency, the car, accelerates to 100 by 4 and 9 seconds and is digested as much as possible for 300 kilometers per hour. Remind us of 80s, when far from all supercars had such characteristics, and of course I have to remember one unique project. Get ready, be surprised. These days, the manufacturer of electric Rimac supercars, this is the manufacturer of the world's fastest electric car, and decided to create a symbiosis of the past and the future, asking to love and inspire the owner of 5 world records for acceleration among electric cars: Rimac M3 E30, 600 horsepower, 900 newtons for 3 and 3 seconds, maximum more than 280 kilometers per hour, rear-wheel drive. In my opinion, this is the most unusual E30 in the history of tuning.
The Rebel was replaced by the more mature and powerful E36. The legendary Ordinary 6 became her heart. She combined comfort and crazy drive, and for the first time, the SMG sequential box appeared for the M3. The real revolution of the 90s, E36, M3 appeared in 1992. All attention was devoted to it, given that its predecessor was a multiple winner and champion both on the track and on the regular road. From the new M3, it has become more powerful than comfort, but even heavier than the old M3 by almost 200 kilograms. Under the installed hood, the 3-liter 6-cylinder engine at 286 horsepower after the restyling, volume was increased to 3 and the capacity was increased to 320 horsepower. 0 and 100 M3 with such engine pass through 5 and 5 seconds. The M3 E34 Heart is rightfully considered one of the best units. The created BMW perfectly combined reliability and power of more than 100 horsepower per liter of power. At that time, such an indicator was rarely boasted by manufacturers. In 1997, another important development, for a fee, could be installed sequential in the CNG box, which I received gears faster could make unprepared driver. Technologies came of course with motorsport. It was ordinary mechanics, but the transmission automatically switches with an electro-hydraulic drive. It is also worth mentioning the racing version of the M3J model. The 36.
The car with this expansion looks simply stunning. This modification of the M3 boasts 300 super powerful Duvagon extended wheel arches and 18-inch wheels. Unfortunately, unlike the predecessor of this generation, the M3 is not famous for its racing victory on the track, but this generation in tuning circles stood out. M3, one of the fastest and most effective M3 of them time, was a version with AC Schnitzer. Improvements were a big replacement for exposed carbon elements, almost all body panels, although on the surface they were not much different from the common. This was not enough, and the entire rear sofa was lowered due to even the door cards were replaced with front seats were replaced with composite buckets. Thus, the M3 became an improved, lighter for 135-gram width installation. New springs with progressive characteristic ground clearance reduced by 35 millimeters. Of course, installed new shock absorbers and stabilizers. Of course, was improved, and the engine, after all the changes, the output of the engine, 350 horsepower and acceleration to 100 was 5 seconds. M3 turned into a racing car with access to traffic. Unique sport through expensive creation exists only in one case.
E46, the moment when M3 became an icon. Perfect design, powerful motor, and sound that is forever etched in the memory of fans. And in the GTR version, she even defeated Porsche in endurance races. And yes, it was this M3 that became the legend of video games thanks to Need for Speed, another legend of the generation of the famous M3. Debuted in March 2000 and again attached to himself views on design and characteristics, a new 6-cylinder M3 343 horsepower engine was developed. This allowed for 1.5 tons of flour in speed up to 100 kilometers per hour for 5 2 seconds of power supply reserve, inflated wheel arches, stylish gills on wings, 18-inch rollers, and 2 2 stoles under the rear bumper is unlikely to be allowed to confuse it with the usual one. In a step, I was one version of M3 in which I literally fell in love with the famous talk show host of top programs, Jeremy Clarkson M3 CSL, light extreme version of the sports car from BMC, worthy of attention. But believe that this is not the most fantastic of the existing E46 models. Why fans, and not only fans, beat the heart more often, so it is from BM3 E46. Liven or designed specifically for the Racing American Forum Men's Series, one of the few cars that gave a serious battle on the racing track's Porsche 911, wins 7 races out of 10. Gamers, this car is well known for the series of games necessary for speed. In it first appeared this car for speed as the most desirable and as the most famous car in gaming.
Industry, due to beautiful airbrushing and a huge wing. Many did not even know that this very serious racing car won races several times, including in the very prestigious 24 Hours of Nürburgring endurance races. Instead of the standard 6-cylinder engine, 346 jitter installed V8 inflated to 493 horsepower on a 6-speed sequential gearbox. Speed of only 3 and 4, the second civilian version of the extremely limited edition was released, and each car cost at least $218,000. The rarest, fastest, and most expensive M3 E46 ever serial production. Of course, one of the craziest versions of the M3 in the tuning of the HPF BM3 M3 Turbo is not missed. Condition: 4E46 modernized engine is able to deliver 1,120 horses. Power is transmitted to the rear wheels through mechanical or robotic control. All this taboo was obtained thanks to the use of turbocharging. The piston head was also replaced, the reconfigured cylinder block, system injection is installed.
Directly, exactly the exhaust system, and 100 other improvements to convey all this force for the road. You've used wide wheels who simply could not physically fit into standard arches because it had to increase the organ. Very wide kite interior must be installed. Safety frame to lighten the car. Almost all unnecessary remains. Only 2 bucket. Steering wheel and dashboard ultra thin. Mini hood with gills under pressure. Anti-wing bumper on the trunk lid, and many other things. Each of these elements is intended to break the speed record. All 3 generations of M3 have earned respect and will remain forever in the hearts of fans, the best of their kind. It is from such cars that real German quality. But now, let's choose from these undoubtedly iconic BMW cars of all times and nations.
Write in the comments, well, how? And did you know that the M3 E46 in the game had a unique sound? Someone thought the turbine rotator was not this cooling gearbox. This sound was so far it was perfect for racing. The next shocks were unimpressed, and the good results were not very shown, but the new innovations. Over the years, M3 became faster, more powerful, more technological. Today's G80 accelerates faster than the Ferrari of the 90s. But despite all the technologies of Dash, fans still dream of those first. Ledge BMW M3 is not just a car. It is a symbol of freedom, drive, and rebellion. She was born to win. And even in the world of the future, Dash, it will remain a legend thanks to the fact that many of us went to the horse
Maybe many of us did not sit in the BMW, but in the video games on the M-Minute and imagined ourselves as these racers. Thanks to the fact that the video went to the horse leaves in the comments the impression about the BMW what it is. Before you meet and before the next video, paw.